Hello viewers, welcome to the Editorial Analysis by Drishti IAS. In this section, we regularly take editorials from various newspapers and news portals for a better understanding of the various issues happening in India and around the globe. In this section, we first try to link the editorial with our UPSC syllabus, then we go analytical in order to understand some key points and at last some important concepts. Dear viewers, we truly hope that you like this initiative taken by Drishti IAS and your feedbacks are important for us. So viewers, kindly feel free to give your important feedbacks in the comment section. So without any further delay, let's commence our session.
Dear viewer, this video is available in Hindi as well. If you wish to watch it, please visit our Hindi YouTube channel, Drishti IAS. For your convenience, the link for this video in Hindi has been provided in the description below.
Today's editorial is taken from Business Standard, published on 13th of October 2020. The title of today's editorial is Award for Auctions, and if we summarize today's editorial, we can see that this year's Nobel Prize for Economic Sciences is given for an actual economic policy design. If we try to link the editorial with our UPSC syllabus, we can link it with GS Paper 3, which has technology, environment, biodiversity, and if we further narrow it down, we can definitely link it with economic development section. Now, before we move ahead, it is quite important for us to understand some basic things about the Nobel Prize in Economics. The Nobel Prize in Economics is officially known as Sveriges Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences. It got started in the year 1968 by a donation that was given from the Sweden's central bank, whose name is Sveriges Riksbank, in order to commemorate the bank's 300th anniversary. This year's Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences is given to Paul R. Milgrom and Robert Wilson for improvement to auction theory. Now, what exactly auction theory is, we will study in the later half of this analysis, and inventions of new auction formats. Some key points of the editorial. The Nobel Prize for Economics is typically awarded to economists who have broken new ground in a particular sector of the discipline or who have pioneered specific method of investigation or analysis. The 2020 edition of the award does this, but in fact also rewards a specific influential act of policy design. Now, it should be noted that Nobel Prize for Economic Sciences is generally awarded to those economists who have done something great or they have introduced something new in the particular sector of the subject, or also it is awarded to those people who have pioneered some specific method of investigation or analysis of the data. By looking at the laureates of 2020 Nobel Prize for Economic Services, we can say that this year's award is given for a very influential act of policy design. The 1993-94 auction by the United States Federal Communication Commission, the FCC, of telecommunication spectrum. In 1993-94, telecommunication spectrum was auctioned by the United States Federal Communication Commission, and this commission actually took the advice, they actually picked up the suggestion which were made by the 2020 Nobel laureates Paul Milgrom and Robert Wilson. And also, this particular suggestion was so beneficial that it actually helped in efficient distribution of the spectrum and also delivered a considerable amount of revenue to the government. Now, what exactly is the suggestion that was given by Paul Milgrom and Robert Wilson? What exactly the auction theory is, we will study now. Now, first of all, it is quite important for us to understand what exactly the auction theory is. Now, the auction theory studies how an auction are designed, what rules govern them, how bidders behave, and what outcomes are achieved. Basic idea of the auction theory is to understand how exactly an auction is designed. What shall be the rules? How bidders are actually going to react in that, and what probable outcomes are expected. or you can say what outcomes are to be achieved. Now, one of the best example of auctions that you can see is the auction of property of a bankrupt person. Quite common example. We have seen this thing many places. Must have seen in some movies as well. However, the format of auction has widened, starting from this situation which I'm telling, that the property of a particular bankrupt person is being auctioned. From this to today, if we look at the sphere of auction, it has grown very wide. And it includes various commodities today, such as spectrum for telecommunication use or for radio use, also the carbon credits, and there are many other commodities which nowadays is auctioned. Now, the auction theory says that there are three key variables which are associated, which are absolutely associated with auction. Number one, the rules of auction. Most important, what exactly the rules of auction are. Now, whether an auction is a open bid or a closed bid auction. Now, I have used the word here, the open bid and closed bid. So just take a small idea about what exactly this is. Now, when I talk about closed bid auction, or you can say a sealed bid auction, it is an auction where all bidders simultaneously submit sealed bids, sealed in an envelope to the auctioneer, so that no other bidder knows how much the other auction participant has bidded. Everybody will come, they will submit their bids in a sealed envelope to the auctioneer, and nobody will come to know what exactly is the amount which the other person has bid. Open bid is something where there is nothing to be hidden. Every participant of the auction knows what the other person is going to offer, right? So this is generally the sealed bid, or you can say the closed bid auction and the open bid auction. Now, this was the first thing. What exactly are the rules of the auction? Number two, commodity or service being put up for auction. Very important. Before coming to an auction, like people who are participating in an auction, we have to see this thing very clearly. Like, does the object which is being auctioned has different value for each bidder, or do the bidders value that particular object in same way? Okay, so it is to be noted that what exactly is the value for that object which is to be auctioned for the bidders. Is the value different, or is the value same for all the bidders? Now, the third one, uncertainty. This is one of the most crucial things. One of the most crucial factors of auction theory. It says that what information do different bidders have about object's value? Uncertainty. This is the most important sector here. Uncertainty. Like, what information do they have about the value of the object? How much are they actually thinking the price or the cost of that one particular value will be, or how beneficial it will be to them in future? So that's where the picture of uncertainty comes. Now, this was something about the auction theory. Now, what exactly has been done by these two economists? Very important to understand. Number one thing, the improvement which Milgram and Wilson, they have suggested, they have benefited. It is said that they have benefited everyone, starting from sellers, buyers, taxpayers, all across the world, because many countries have actually started following the suggestions which were given by these two economists. Also, this auction format, this particular auction format nowadays is being used for selling the radio frequencies, fishing quotas, airport landing slots, etc., etc. So you can see how actually the suggestions given by these two peoples, it has helped people all across the globe. Now, what exactly were the suggestions which these two economists gave? Number one, suggestion which was given by Robert Wilson. Now, Robert Wilson showed that why actually a rational bidder tends to place bids below their own best estimate. They know that, okay, this is the amount. This actually is the value of a particular object, yet they tend to bid a lower amount. Now, what exactly is the reason why they do this? The reason they do this is because they are worried about winner's curse. Now, what exactly winner's curse is? You must have seen, it has happened with us as well. You must have observed this thing a lot many times. You go to a market and you go to some particular shop, which is not a fixed price shop. So what happens? A situation of bargain comes. The shopkeeper says one value and you say 500 rupees lesser than that. And the other person agrees. So we have this remorse in our mind. Okay, we could have definitely brought him even down. The object for which I have paid 2500 rupees, the other person would have sold this object to me in 2000 rupees. Now that's exactly is the winner's curse. So Robert Wilson has actually shown why people, they bid below their own best estimate. They know the value, yet they bid a lower amount or a lesser amount. Now second, the contribution made by Milgram. Now Milgram, he formulated a more general theory of auction. Now what he did, that he said that a particular good, like in any auction, in any one particular auction, he said not only the common values, what exactly is the common value of a particular project is. We should not be just focused upon the common value, but we should focus upon the value of that particular object with respect to every bidder. Chances are quite high that for a particular bidder, the value of an object must be higher, and for that same object, other bidder might keep a lower value. So he formulated a more general theory regarding this. So students, this was something about the auction theory. What exactly is the work which is done by these two economists? Let's move ahead. Now, the FCC picked up the suggestion made by the 2020 laureates, Paul Milgram and Robert Wilson, like I told you, and it has given a tremendous amount of benefit to the government in terms of revenue. The FCC telecom auction has been modified and adapted by many countries around the world, including India. Okay, so like I said, this format of auctioning has been since then taken by many countries, including India. Here, telecom spectrum allocation has been of a great value, both politically as well as a major source of government revenue. Now, in other words, this is not just an award for economic theory or for economic policy analysis. It is an award for actual economic policy design, for creative system that works in the real world, that balances key objective of the public, and that is robust and transparent. It is to be noted that it is not an economic theory. Okay, because if you talk about some economic theory, so chances are quite high that a person might fall under that theory, or chances are also quite there that the other person is not coming under that particular economic theory. It might not be applicable for everyone. However, the innovative idea which has been suggested by the two economists, it actually impacts everyone from the government to the common people. And the most important thing associated with this particular design is that it brings transparency, which is liked by people. So the question is, what can India take from the experience of this particular policy intervention? The answer is a great deal. India has got a tremendous amount of chances. If India wants to take this particular deal into consideration and follow in our country here, then the chances are quite high that we can see great benefits, both for the people as well as for the revenue of the government. It might be believed that by adopting the broad outlines of the auction for scarce resources, the Indian state indeed following the example set by this year's Nobel laureate. And we know, like I said, that the idea has been adopted by many countries. So yes, many scarce resources are there in India, and whenever those scarce resources are to be given, this pattern of the suggestions which were given by these two economists, actually the auctioning takes place using their suggestion. And we have seen that it has benefited the state tremendously. Now, Some things to learn from this. The crucial aspect is that the management of the process was broadly transparent and that professional economists were involved in the design process throughout. Now, the best part about this particular innovation is that it is absolutely transparent. Transparency is the key. If anything wants to make a place in the people's heart, it is transparency. So anything which is associated with transparency is something which is welcomed by the governments as well as by the public. And one more important plus point about this innovative idea was that since the very beginning, since the inception of this idea, professional economists were associated with this process. These economists work not just for the government, but for universities and indeed some case for the company that would be bidding for the resources. Now, these economists, they have worked not only for the governments, they have also worked as teachers in universities. Also, they have worked for corporate houses. In fact, some of the corporate houses were there who were actually going to be the part of the bidding process. But the best part associated with such thing was that this entire idea which these two economists shared, it was an open idea and anyone could have used and followed the suggestions which were given by these two economists. They presented their alternative view as to how the auction should be constructed. Like I said, the design of the auction, they actually said how an auction can be constructed. These were discussed in open seminar by the broader academic economic community, and then eventually the regulator picked one of the options alongside an explanation why it did so. So whatever suggestions these people had, they discussed it with many other people. And of those discussions, one particular best option was chosen by the regulator and the auction process was carried out. Now, this is an exemplary policy that worked because it was designed well. The reason it worked, because it was designed in a very appropriate manner with zero loopholes. The very mechanism that led to it being chosen is what ensured its excellence, given that the mechanism embodied the principle of expertise, independence, discussion, transparency. These are the factors which actually made this idea, or you can say the recipients, they actually came up with such an idea which had all these principles of expertise, independence, discussion, transparency. And that actually called for a Nobel Prize for these two economists. Professor Milgrom and Wilson, whose idea was adopted by the FCC, were in fact working for Pacific Bell, one of the companies that would be participating in the auction. So, there's one fun fact here. Now, these two people, when they presented the idea and the FCC decided to do the auction process by their idea, at that point of time, these two people were working in a company known as Pacific Bell. And Pacific Bell was also one of the participants of that auction which was to be conducted by FCC. But because the idea was presented and analysis in public and by multiple independent experts, it was trusted and subsequently replicated everywhere. So, this idea was presented before many people. People had public discussions about this particular idea, and only then it was taken into consideration. If observers in India worry that economic policy making, including around auctions, has fallen far short of the gold standard rewarded by the Nobel this year, the difference in processes explain why. Now it is time to think what exactly has went wrong with India and where exactly we have lacked. It is time to check, to check and to ensure that we are actually removing all the loopholes and trying to go with the best possible solution. So students, this was with today's editorial analysis. Now some of the questions, prelims based question could be upon Nobel Prize, name the laureate. Something they can ask about might be about auction service. Also, they can ask you about what exactly is the work that is done by these two Nobel laureates in economic sciences that they deserved a Nobel Prize in economics. No mains based question right now can be framed out of this. Now definitely if it comes further, we'll definitely discuss a mains based question on this particular aspect. So students, thank you very much. I hope you liked the video.